Hey, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to teach you to figure out how much is land worth in my area. So I'm asked all the time, how do I figure out what in the world the land's worth in my area? Or I'm looking at selling land, how much do I figure out what it's worth in this area? And today I'm going to break it down for you. All right, in this episode, I've got 3 points I want to make to you. One, how to find the comps, how to figure out what the land is selling for. Number two, how to calculate, which I'm going to show you right back here on this little whiteboard. And three, a valuable resource that me and my team use to have this done for us. All right, so first we need to know where in the world's the land at. I call this my playground. Let's just say it's in El Paso County, Colorado. I want to talk to you about getting as micro as possible. Counties are the larger picture, and then we go into cities, and then we can go into town. We want to get as small of a picture as possible, as micro down as possible, because something that might be selling for $10,000 an acre on one side of the county might be selling for $2,000 an acre on the other side of the county. So I love an asset called Zillow.com. We're all familiar with it. I want you to go to Zillow.com and put your area in the search bar. Let's just say that the smallest you can get is the city. Like for instance, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Well, here's the thing. Once we get it in there, we can look at the map and actually narrow down to the comparable property. When I say the comparable property, I mean it's the piece of land that we're looking for, or we're looking at, or trying to figure out how much the acre of land is worth. All right, so back to Zillow. How to find out how much my land is worth, how much to find out what the land is worth. So we're looking at Colorado Springs, Colorado. Next, I want you to go to the solds. You see for sale, for rent, and sold. I want you to click on sold. And then I want you to go to home type. Go to home type and deselect all. I want you to uncheck everything. And then the only check I want you to do is lot and land, because we're only interested in lots and land. If you're looking at houses, then you only want the houses selected. I think you kind of get the picture, but we're looking at only land. So lots and land is all that is checked. Next, I want you to go to more and click on more. Check or click that box. And are we looking at land that's in an HOA, a homeowners association, or are we looking at land that's kind of like on the outskirts, that's not an HOA? If you're looking at an HOA, then you want to show HOA properties. If you're not, you want to click no HOA, because once again, apples to apples. That's all a comparable is. We want to compare like items. Next, you want to scroll down, and let's just say we're looking at 10-acre parcels here. So we want to go for acreage, size of the land, size of the acres. You want to be from 8 acres to 11 acres. That's about as far as I want to go in my parameters. Preferably 9 to 11, because you'll see that 10 acres is right in the middle. But we want to kind of figure out, we don't want to filter out too much. So you might have to play with these. Be flexible in this. Finding comparables, it's really an art. I don't know if I could say it's a science, because sometimes you got to be flexible. Sometimes you got to extend the range as far as, months or distance, or maybe even acres. So we want to be as close as possible. That's all we can do. Almost is good enough when figuring out what the land is worth in your area, what your land is worth. All right, so you're still in the more section. You're still in the more tab. And then I want you to scroll down and do sold in the last 6 months. And if that kind of filters out too much stuff, you might have to go down to 9 months. But anything more than 9 months, I start to get a little nervous on. I'm figuring out how much my land's worth, or figuring out how much land is worth in that area that we're looking at. So that should be enough filters, and I want you to go to the map and see if anything is still left. If not, you're going to have to expand. If there's too much, you might have to compress a little bit. But generally, I like to see like 5 comparables. Sometimes I have to work with 2 or 3. I mean, prefer like 10, but we're lucky if we get 5 most of the time, because this is vacant raw land. Zillow is not the best at tracking it. If you're struggling with this, if they're not seeing much, you might have to call a realtor. But let's finish with the Zillow example. So I want you to see, what you've got available. Let's just say, for instance, that you're looking at the 10-acre parcels, the 9-acre parcels, 11-acre parcels, and you're generally seeing these go for anywhere from $10,000 to $11,000 to $9,000. On average, I'm kind of seeing, just at the top of my head without doing any math, that we're seeing that this land is selling, solds, for about $1,000 an acre. Now, I want you to kind of go and change it up a little bit. I want you now to click on the for sale, the stuff that's for sale. Rule of thumb, you generally will see this a little bit higher price per acre, and you might see some more examples, but once again, keep it apples to apples. And I see people usually ask a little bit more than what they're actually getting. So the for sales are usually, if we're seeing it at $1,000 an acre on the solds, we're generally seeing it for like $1,500 to $1,600 an acre on the for sale. But that doesn't mean they're going to get it. That just means that they're asking that. How to figure out how much a piece of land is worth is actually by looking at what people have paid for it. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. What someone's willing to pull money out of their pocket and pay for something, transact for something. That's how to figure out a comp. That's how to find your comp. I want to give you another example. Who else better to talk to than a real estate agent? A real estate agent that specializes in land comps. So I want to give you a quick story. One of my first parcels of land that I was buying was for actually $285. Very inexpensive piece of land. It was actually 2 lots that were put together, and turns out they were not buildable, but I had no clue what they were worth. So I drove out to this land. It was like an hour from my home. I had to drive out there, and I sat on this land. I checked it out, and I was on the way down the hill leaving this property, and I was still like, man, I just couldn't figure it out. How in the world is this guy selling this for so cheap? It was beautiful, but I had no clue what it was worth. And as I'm driving down, not even a mile away from this land, is as if God planted a real estate office for me to see and call this realtor. And I got this realtor on the phone. I called and a realtor answered, and I was so happy. And I said, hey, I'm looking at a piece of land just down the street from you. Here's the address. And she's like, look, I'm familiar with that area. I said, great. Well, what is the 30-day blowout price that I could sell this land for? Because I have no clue what it's worth, and I'm trying to buy it, and I'd like for you to list it for me. She goes, well, I don't know about a 30-day blowout price, but I can tell you this land is worth about $10,000. You could probably sell it in like 45 to 60 days. So I was like, great. So I thanked her for her time, and I hung up. And my wife was with me, so I'm telling my wife the story. What she said, this thing is worth $10,000 and we're buying it for $285. This realtor calls me back, and I said, hello. She goes, hey, Brent, what do you think if I were to buy that land from you? And I said, great, what are you offering? She said, I'll offer you $5,000. And I was like, awesome. When do you want to close? She said, I can close on Wednesday. And it's Saturday. 4 days from now, she can close. I said, great, send me the contract. Let's do this. So I called my seller back and said, hey, I can pay you $285 on Tuesday. I literally met this guy on Tuesday, the seller, got the deed, gave him the check, and brought the deed to the title company, and I got my $5,000 the next day. So I was able to find my comps by literally calling a real estate office that was close to the land. I want to give you one more example, then I'm going to kind of break it down on this board here, a quick, easy example for you. Another way I find my comps is landwatch.com. I go and I look. I want to do the minimum acres of 9 acres and the max to 11 if I'm looking at a 10-acre parcel. And then I check the undeveloped land because I only want to see undeveloped land. And then I look and I see what's out there for sale, and I kind of judge it, and I write this number down, and I'm kind of seeing, okay, it's looking like people are selling anywhere from 12 to 1,500 per acre. Well, Zillow shows me that they're also selling it for 12 to 1,500 per acre as far as the for sales, and then the solds are going for about 1,000 an acre. We generally see the solds be a little bit less on Zillow. So that's giving me an average of about $1,000 an acre still between what's available on LandWatch and Zillow, for sale, and solds. But I want to break down a super easy example for you. But before I do that, I want you to comment below. Comment your area, comment your questions that you have, and then I'll go into my example. All right, so I want to show you a super quick example here. We're finding that on Zillow, things are selling for about $10,000 for 10 acres. And remember, this is just averages. In vacant raw land, we deal in averages. And I'm going to show you a way that will give you such a buffer, so much room for error that you can't overpay for land. So, quick example. We found that 10-acre parcel is selling for $10,000, and that's the average between LandWatch and Zillow, and we even looked at Redfin just to be sure. So $10,000 divided by 10, that comes out to $1,000 per acre. That's $1,000 per acre on the retail side. That's what it's selling for retail. So I want to get this at a massive discount. I never want to pay retail value. I'm not in the business to pay retail value. This is how I make my living. So I want to pay maximum, maybe 30 cents on the dollar, but I'm going to run this at 20 cents on the dollar. So what is 20% of $1,000? That is roughly $200 per acre. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So $200 per acre is what I'm paying. So I'm going to have into 10 acres. What's 10 times 2? So if I'm paying $200 per acre times 10 acres, that is $2,000. I'm going to pay a whopping $2,000 for a piece of land that's worth $10,000. That is a huge return on investment. And these are just really round numbers. But let's just say we're at $100,000. Let's just say this land is worth $100,000 and we're paying 20 cents on the dollar. We're going to be paying $20,000 for a piece of land that's worth $100,000. I think you're kind of seeing the example at 20 cents on the dollar. So you might be thinking like, hey, I'm looking to find the comps on land, how to figure out what my land's worth, or even how to figure out what an acre of land is worth. You might be thinking, oh, this guy's now lowballing everyone. The reason why I showed you the 20 cents on the dollar example is because, like I said, we deal in averages for vacant raw land. And then I want to build a buffer. I'm not saying I'm getting tons of land for 20 cents on the dollar. Sometimes it's 50 cents on the dollar. I'm just building room for a profit. Maybe you're only watching this to figure out what your land is worth or how much to pay or how much to sell your land. So that was just a quick example. Hope you found a lot of information on that as far as like how to figure out the price per acre of land. But I also want to show you the done for you method that my team uses every day. All right, before I keep going and go to my next point, you might know someone that's trying to sell land and they have no clue what it's worth. Share this with someone that needs it. All right, this is the program that my team uses every time we buy a piece of land. This is how we figure out what the land is worth. This is how we figure out what the comps are, and this is how we figure out what to pay, and it's all done for us. And it's a program called Price, and you can find link below, price.com/thelandsharks in the description. This is my link for you for a 7-day free trial, and your first 400 records are free. If you're looking to pull a list or figure out what the land's worth or just use this tool to figure out what your land is worth, you get a 7-day free trial. They show you the comps. They show you where they're pulling it from. They're pulling from Zillow and LandWatch and the multiple listing service and putting it all in a package for you and making it super easy for you. All right, so I talked to you about how to buy land at 20 cents on the dollar, my example behind me here. If you're interested in doing that and buying land at maximum, massive discounts, dive into the video just above me here on how to buy land that's not even for sale. Click it now because this is my jam and this is how I teach people how to do the exact same thing I'm doing.